In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
That's not been a great start for the SEC so far in bowl season. A former SEC quarterback, Connor Wingman, led Houston to a big win, 38-35, in a really entertaining Texas Bowl there in the city of Houston. LSU was up in the game, up 14-0 early, but Houston made all the plays late to come away with the win, giving the SEC another loss in bowl play. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Hope you had a great Christmas holiday and a great season overall as we get ready now for the upcoming basketball season. And Patrick, this is a really fun game if you're just a regular common football fan. I think if you're watching from the SEC's perspective, from LSU, what you saw at LSU, there's some building blocks here. Obviously, this team will look completely different with Lane around, but what did you make of LSU's performance there, going up early but eventually losing?
Well, I think you have to take into account that some of those defensive stars that we've seen throughout the season did not play, and whether that was due to injury, opt-outs, getting ready for the draft, or whatever. But, I mean, you go up 14-0 early, you get the kickoff return for a touchdown to start the game, 99 yards, take it to the house, and then just a few minutes later, I mean, it's 14-0, 4 minutes into the game, and then all of a sudden that lead is gone by the time it's halftime, and then you just get outscored pretty badly the rest of the way. But, I mean, it's been a reoccurring theme this entire year, LSU just unable to get the ground game going for Michael Van Buren, who honestly I think had one of the better games of the season. Now you could talk about how it's Houston and they're still in the beginning stages of their time in a Power 4 conference, but still I think Michael Van Buren, we talked about it last week I think a little bit about how he's trying to play for tape. In my opinion, he was just trying to play to put some tape out there for coaches. I would expect him to enter the portal here pretty soon because he's not going to compete with whoever they bring in under Lane Kiffin.
Well, and I think if it is going to be a transfer of some type. So I don't know if it's going to be any one of the main guys that Lane Kiffin brings to LSU or one of the guys that's already on the roster. I think a lot of these guys were looking to put on good tape for Lane Kiffin, and you saw in the early stages, as far as statistics go, he was 16 of 26, 200-something yards, 267 yards, and 3 touchdowns there in that game against Houston, and a really good QBR there, 86.9. But you mentioned it, the fact that they were not able to really run the ball with any kind of consistency. 77 yards overall, really led by Harlan Berry. I know he had 45 yards, but Van Buren had 24 yards himself. It just kind of seemed to be a kind of a recurring theme with this football team. And we talked about it going into the game. Like, it felt like Houston, just from a want-to standpoint, they probably had more desire to play in this game because LSU had so many opt-outs going into it. But, going down in the hole, I was like, okay, when I started watching, I was like, hey, this is an LSU team that, they are more talented. I think they're definitely a more talented football team. But I just felt like the desire, the want-to, was all one-sided. It was all on Houston's side.
Well, and I just think it's so interesting because we had talked about, is LSU just at this point trying to get this season over with? I mean, you've got so much hype in the future here, and this season has been such a dud. I mean, they were my preseason SEC champions, and then we all saw how that panned out. I think they went 3-5 in SEC play. And Lane Kiffin is there. I was wondering if he was going to make his way to the game. I didn't really expect him to make his way all the way up into the booth, and I think he only stayed for
there was some talk about this. I think it left in the second half, or early in the second half, maybe even at halftime. Maybe not even, but there were pictures of him, leaving. And I thought about that too. And the internet was making a bigger deal of it.
How do you think?
What's
your thoughts?
To me, it would be more awkward if he's on the sideline, if he's too engaged. And it's typical whenever a coach does, come to the bowl game. It's typical that the producers of the television product will obviously want to have the coach in there, and usually those guys acquiesce and they say, okay, they'll do it because the team can't hear it. Obviously, they're on the field playing. But it's a unique situation because we talked about it on this show, the fact that Frank Wilson, who's the interim coach, he's actually leaving to go to Ole Miss to become Ole Miss's coach. So it might have not been as awkward. I remember a few years ago, I think it was Trenton Dilfer, when he was about to coach at UAB. He went to the bowl game and he was on the sideline. It felt kind of awkward. When you had the new coach there was another school that had it as well. When the new coach is just kind of hanging, it feels like they're just hanging around.
Well, James Franklin did that for one game at Virginia Tech.
That's right.
Year.
Yeah,
I believe it was the Miami game. But I mean, I feel like I could see where it can be awkward because you've got a guy right now that was coaching in Frank Wilson. Now he's going to head up to Oxford.
Right.
Presumably he's already up there.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying attention. I haven't been doing the flight trackers or anything. But I mean, it just seems a little interesting to me that the way that Lane kind of left, and it's just he wants to stir up the pot and everything. And I know he posted today that his on one of his Instagram stories with the caption 4 days, and I think that means 4 days until the transfer portal. And he had he had another post yesterday about how he's at work trying to do all the scouting on the transfer portal. I mean, they're going to have a great class, and he's probably got to pick out his quarterback here pretty soon. But one interesting development that just came out today is Cam Coleman entering the transfer portal.
Yep.
I would not be surprised if Lane Kiffin threw a bag at Cam Coleman and then threw a bag at like DJ Lagway or someone else.
Right.
And that's like your 1-2 punch, basically.
Yeah, and you talked about Cam Coleman. He will be the hottest name. On3.com is reporting that when the transfer portal does open on Friday, that Cam Coleman's name will be on there. You have to expect that he would be probably the hottest commodity.
The number one, without a doubt.
Of any position, really.
Yes.
Maybe outside of quarterback. I mean, even quarterbacks, I feel like this guy, he kind of eclipses that because of what he was able to do there at Auburn. Auburn now has lost 5 receivers to the transfer portal. So it's a really interesting situation going on there with Alex Golesh as he tries to implement what he's doing there with the Auburn Tigers. But there's going to be some interesting noise here. And I think that if you put your name in the portal at this point, it's because you either have something already set or you have some kind of guarantees on the back end that you probably know where you're going. I would obviously – I think LSU would have to be a spot that you're looking at. Georgia would have to be a spot that you're possibly looking at. Ohio State, they are seemingly always in the running for some of the top players, mainly because they have shown over and over again that they will pay top dollar for a lot of these guys. But I feel this LSU team, will look completely different next year than the 7-6 team that just finished off the year this year.
I have to ask you the question because there's one guy that's kind of been playing for a spot on Lane Kiffin's roster, and it's Trey'Dez Green.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about him before the year, about how he's a basketball player converted into a football tight end. We didn't really know what we were going to expect out of him. He scored 7 touchdowns this year, and even a couple against Houston in the Texas Bowl here. So I really wouldn't be surprised if I almost feel like that guy right there, Bauer Sharp, was supposed to be the tight end coming into the year.
Right.
And the former head coach, Brian Kelly, was very high on Bauer Sharp, and he gave him nothing but praise before the year. But I almost feel like Trey'Dez Green kind of played himself into that top tight end role. And I mean, when you look at the transfer portal right now, and obviously it doesn't open again for another few days. It doesn't open until January 2nd. I don't see a lot of depth at the tight end position. And, I mean, you've got a guy that's kind of – Trey'Dez Green almost to me is kind of like a Jake Ferguson where in the red zone you can just throw it up to him and he'll go and get it. He can be that reliable target for LSU in the red zone. And we've seen how – the offense has struggled at times this year just to put points up on the board.
Yes, exactly. Especially, and if you get down there, like you mentioned, you just throw it up to him, and it feels like you just play basketball with them inside the red zone because he is a matchup nightmare for corners, linebackers, or safeties. You've been really high on Trey'Dez Green, and it showed towards the end of the season that he was a true weapon for them. I would think Lane Kiffin would want to do anything in his power to be able to keep Trey'Dez Green there on the roster and intact with this football program because, to me, that can be a guy, but not necessarily you build around, but he's definitely be a guy that is an asset to whatever quarterback is in there, and especially if they can get the running game going, add the running game to what they are able to do offensively, being able to throw the football at the perimeter and then go up top to a guy like Trey'Dez Green.
Look, if LSU wants to dish out some money, and I'm sure this was obviously the hot topic about the whole Lane Kiffin saga was, how much money are you going to give me in NIL funding?
Right.
From what we've seen right now, if Lane Kiffin can go and get either DJ Lagway or I honestly also like Josh Hoover.
Oh, yeah.
Over at
Yeah, at TCU.
A proven guy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if Trinidad gets his waiver, I still don't know if he's going to leave Ole Miss. But if he were to get one of those two quarterbacks, it seems like he's kind of starting to trend in the direction of getting Kejuan Lacey to leave Ole Miss. And then you get Cam Coleman. You keep Trey'Dez Green. This team is national championship contender next year.
100%.
With that defense and those guys coming back, the Weeks brothers.
Right.
Like come on.
I think they might lose Harold Perkins Jr. to the NFL, but I mean, if he stays,
they can just reload.
Yeah,
they got the number one guy, Lamar Brown, the number one D line, and I think he's the number one recruit in all of
probably. I think the
entire
number one
class.
overall. Yeah. So this team is completely different. And one of the things on the broadcast that the guys asked, I think it was Tom Hart and Cole Kubelik that were on the game broadcast. One of the things they asked Hugh Freeze, and one of the things they asked Lane Kiffin was, do you treat this differently at LSU than you would at Ole Miss? And he straight up said, yeah, because you have so much talent right in the 50 miles that surround you, that you do have to treat a little bit differently and go more local instead of having to go, whether it's Portal King or whatever. So you blend what he's been able to do with the portal with the fact that he's in a place that has so much talent right there, on his own soil, so to speak. I think the sky's the limit for this team next year.
Yeah, but before we get to next year, let's talk a little bit about this year because, I mean, obviously it was a failure, but if you were to give it a letter grade for this season, what would you give it?
I think they made the right decision by firing Brian Kelly. So I'll give them credit for that. I think that getting rid of him, while expensive, while messy, while dirty, while it didn't play well in the public spaces, getting rid of him was the best option, and being able to get Lane. So the fact that to me, it looked terrible, but I'll give the season an A for what they were able. Sorry, I'll give the product on the field gets a D. Yeah, because they got the win over Clemson, which that watered down.
If you just said straight up A, I would have been like, you're out of your mind.
No. It's straight up A, no. But the way everything has been since I would say since they fired Brian Kelly, as ugly as it was, I would give all the decisions, I'd give it an A because you eventually got Lane Kiffin, you eventually got the hot name, the hot commodity, and you're able to now to start the groundwork because, like you mentioned, the recruiting's already gone well so far, unlike other places like Auburn where guys are transferring in and out of there. So you're able to get the guy that you think will be the leader that can send you to a national championship soon, in my opinion. But obviously on the field, that Clemson win now looks blah to me. So I would give the field a D. Postseason an A.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to give the play on the field if we're just going off of that an F.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all you can really give it when your best win is Week 1 against Clemson, and how we all of us talked about how Brian Kelly couldn't win the first game of the season.
Right,
he was 0-4 up until that point, and then he wins that game. And it's like, okay, maybe this is LSU's year under Brian Kelly, and maybe he can start to live up to some of his predecessors.
Right.
And, I mean, that Texas A&M loss was just absolutely shocking at home. What happened in that second half? You obviously had to fire Brian Kelly at that point. But, I mean, when you look at it, they went undefeated against unranked teams. Their 6 losses all came against ranked teams. So, I mean, if there is a silver lining there, that is it. But, I mean, if you're going off of play only, it's what we like to call an F. This is my F. This is my F for you. I'd almost give you an F- because that's how bad it was this year for LSU. But I think Lane Kiffin brings it up to a D.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you obviously knocked it out of the park with the hire. But you have to make sure you spend the money in the right place.
That's the thing.
Yeah. You're going to spend. I wouldn't be shocked if LSU. I don't think this would ever come out, but if it ever did, that LSU spent the most money next year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Same here. And going back through their schedule, I mean, they lost to Ole Miss, 24-19, a one-possession game. They lost to Oklahoma 17-13, a one-possession game there. Lost to Alabama 20-9, kind of pulled away there towards the end, and lost to Vanderbilt 31-24, another one-possession game. So this is a team that they feel like they're right there, and I feel like Lane Kiffin more than makes up for it. Also, shout out to Connor Whiteman, the quarterback at Houston, a former SEC guy.
Former Texas A&M guy.
Yeah, former Texas A&M guy. Those 4 touchdown passes there. I think that he's out of eligibility. I know, and he's played 4 years of college football. I think he might be out of eligibility, but if not, he would be fun to watch, you know, moving forward with this team. And if Coach Fritz is able to keep him there.
All I'm going to say about this is what I've taken away from this past weekend is since LSU lost to Houston and West Virginia beat Houston, that West Virginia is better than LSU. So I'm just going to hold that on my pedestal for the rest of the year up until next year, until Lane Kiffin, you know, just dominates everyone, and then I can no longer say that.
I was about to say, it'll be definitely short-lived there. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Oklahoma City. We'll catch up with Holden Cruzmark talking all things basketball as SEC play is just around the corner. Stay with us. And welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus here on this Monday. The college football playoff continues to roll on at the end of the week. And then we have our college basketball. The SEC slate also begins. So we will proud to be joined by Holden Cruzmark. And it's a really busy time for you guys there on the court. We were talking during the commercial break a moment ago that it's lots of basketball on the college level and the professional level just before we head up to SEC play. Holden?
Yeah, now that OU's out of the playoff run, we are officially on to basketball season here in Oklahoma. Football is a thing of the past. We're all hoops here now between the Thunder and OU and OSU. Both the men's basketball teams wrap up their non-conference play tonight, and then they get started for conference play on Saturday. So that'll be fun to kind of see how this all shakes out. I know the Thunder just had their kind of little rough stretch, but they beat the 76ers yesterday, so we're all feeling a little bit better here.
No question about it. Let's start with men's basketball there with the Sooners. As you grade their non-conference play, they went 3-3 against Power 5 opponents. What do you make of the way this team was able to perform? I know you said tonight's the last non-conference game, but what you've seen so far before they roll into SEC play?
Yeah, I think they've made some good strides here recently. They've won 3 in a row, and I think 7 of 8 or 6 of 7, something like that. And it seems like they're starting to gel a little bit more. Alabama transfer Darius just had his best game as a Sooner. He had 22 points on like a crazy efficiency night, and they're winning against Stetson. Again, it's Stetson, but you know. It's always good to see the ball go in the hoop, and Xavier Brown, who is kind of one of their lead guards, he had turned an ankle earlier in the season, and it kind of impacted him a little bit, and I think that's how they kind of dropped one of their games. So it's good to see the team kind of rounding into shape. They've got a handful of good players, and they've got a lot of playmakers too. They've been having Tate Davis play a little bit more with the ball in his hands and kind of distributing and stuff, and so that's always kind of interesting when you've got a 6'9" guy that can handle the ball and make plays. So I think they're well positioned to have a pretty solid conference season, and it gets started Saturday against Ole Miss. So that'll be something we're looking forward to see just how do they kind of fare against a team like Ole Miss, and it's at home, and that kind of will either build up the excitement for the season or sober some people up, I guess.
Well, we'll talk about the Ole Miss game here in a second, but I think you put it greatly, the fact that it is Stetson. But we do have to bring up that they set a program record for their field goal percentage. How important was it to have an offensive performance like that heading into what was the Christmas break?
Yeah, I think it's just always good to see the ball go in the hoop, and they were getting some pretty easy looks too, which is always a good sign. You see the numbers for Pack 3 of 5 3-point shooting. He's been pretty much that all season. He's been pretty much Mr. Consistent for them, and it's kind of been more about the other guys. What can they get from the other guys? And I think Tay Davis is really starting to find his groove, and Darion Reed, which I mentioned earlier, having a nice game. Those 3 plus Xavier Brown, who you see pictured there, those are the 4 guys that if they are cooking, then OU is going to be a dangerous team this year, and it's really about those 4 and if you can keep Mo McGee on the court or not, because he had some really good rim protection for them. He does a nice job of rebounding and everything. So, and they don't really, I guess the interesting thing we could talk about is the new Russian big man that they've got on the team. I was going to say they don't really have much depth behind Mo McGee, which was a problem in their game against Gonzaga. Is Mo McGee got in early foul trouble, and they just weren't the same without him on the floor. Freshman Kai Rogers is kind of slowly kind of getting there, but he just turned his ankle recently, so he's probably not going to play tonight in their game against Mississippi Valley State. But I'm gonna try to get this right. I believe his name's Kirill Elatontsev.
Okay, nice,
is joining the Sooners. They just announced that they sent out a release the other day saying that he's officially part of the team, and so it'll be interesting to see if he gets some run tonight. I mean, I would expect him. He's got 1 season of eligibility, so I feel like he's probably going to try and hit the ground running here. And who better to get your feet wet with than the worst team in Division I, Mississippi Valley State.
So was he like a spring transfer?
He's not a transfer. He was just playing in Russia, and they signed him.
Wow.
Okay.
So. It's not quite the Baylor situation.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say
who,
anything.
Yeah.
Like it's not that crazy. I mean, we've got guys that were drafted in the NBA that are now coming back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But he is 23 though, and he's played on the Russian national team and stuff. So it's an interesting signing. I don't really know what to expect from him, but I mean, it never hurts to have another guy who's like 6'10", 6'11",
right?
On the bench, be able to provide some size and some rebounding, I'm sure. So
yeah,
is kind of, I was really surprised when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, we're just adding guys mid-season here, but it's basically water under the bridge when you compare it to the Baylor situation.
Absolutely,
so.
Absolutely. Coach Porter Moser and company getting a really a proven player, even though it wasn't here on United States soil. So we'll see how it all shakes out for them. You mentioned that record-breaking performance against Stetson. Let's hear from Coach.
Just, this team's been, taking care of the ball. We had 7 turnovers at halftime, and we talked about it. They had 1 turnover second. This is 2 out of the last 4 games we've had 1 turnover and a half. That's like elite. Mike Houck just told me that we had 7 of the last 10 games. Have you heard this? 7 of the last 10 games, we've had single-digit turnovers. That's the first time since they've kept stats for over 30 years that they've had that. So 1, we're taking care of the ball. 2, we've been playing unselfishly. We've been moving it. I mean, sometimes this game, when the lead starts going, you can see guys just, we never stop sharing it. We had 22 assists on 40 baskets. So I thought our efficiency in sharing it, guys were being simple. Darian Reed is continuing the arrow going up. He's just being real simple. I thought Jeff Wonk, we only played 15 minutes, but I thought he was simple. X and Nigel have been taking care of the ball all year. So I just think the guys were really, really efficient tonight, taking care of the ball and sharing it.
So there is Coach Porter Moser as they get ready for, as you said, the worst team in Division I basketball, Mississippi Valley State, and it's one of a handful of really great games to start off SEC play, Oklahoma and Ole Miss. I think what are some reasonable expectations from where Oklahoma stands now for what you would expect this team to look like come the end of February?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reasonable expectation is for them to make the NCAA tournament. They were able to do that last year, and I think they're a more well-balanced team this year. Obviously, Jeremiah Fears last year was kind of the star of the show and really elevated the team, but this year I feel like they're just kind of more well-rounded and maybe a better constructed team. So I kind of see, and it all starts against Ole Miss. You gotta go and do it. The SEC is obviously going to be tough, but I don't know that it's quite as tough as it was a year ago. So that'll be an interesting thing to see, is just how many wins can this team get in SEC play. They made the tournament last year, I think, with only 6 SEC wins. So that was a pretty low
That's Big
bar
12 numbers
to meet. So I'd like to see them hover around 500 for conference play, and I think that gets you firmly in the big dance. And once you're in there, it's all we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do like this team, and they are coming together a little bit, and they just have really solid pieces. And I think Porter mentioned in his press conference that the bench is really starting to come in to fruition for them. Is they had a lot of guys that really hadn't played much. Jeff Wonkwo, who is an Oklahoma City guy, he transferred in from playing JUCO basketball and was hurt all of last year, so he missed time. Jadon Jones missed all of last year. So those 2 guys who are older guys coming off the bench that could have a real impact that just didn't get to play at all last year because of injury. So they're kind of starting to find their footing a little bit. Dayton Forsyth, who was a true freshman last year, he's getting more experience. And then you have Kual Atak, who's he redshirted all of last year, so he didn't play. And you've got the freshman big man Kai Rogers, and now you've got the Russian big Elatantsev that's coming in. So, I think the bench is really what will kind of help this team if they can kind of eat up some of those minutes when the starters are having to rest and just kind of keep it a net neutral. I think that'll be really important for this team. And it seems like they're maybe growing a little bit in confidence and starting to find themselves a little bit, which is always a good sign if you're able to get some guys come off the bench and help make an impact like that.
Holden, I take a look at this SEC schedule to open up the year, and specifically the month of January. And on paper, it looks like a gauntlet. But the thing is, all of these games against Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, and Texas are all at home. So, I mean, that's got to help. But when you look at this stretch right here, what would you say, what would you like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what would be a respectable record of these 5 games for you to have a good chance of making the big dance, as you mentioned?
Yeah, I think if you're able to win 2 of those games, I mean, that's probably a good, momentum builder right there. Like you said, it's at home, and OU kind of over the course of the last few years, they've pretty much always played these games really close, and then just kind of found ways to lose these kind of games. They won a couple of them last year, but there's just so many games where you would see them just right in it and then just find a way to lose. And so I think winning a couple of those would go a long way towards, tournament resume. Beating Texas is always a very important thing. So if you're able to beat Texas and one of those, and even if you're able to win 3 of those, I think that's, really great for the outlook of this team moving forward. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough grind in the SEC, and, getting every win that you can, especially at home, is going to be big, because we all know winning on the road ain't easy.
Yeah.
So that'll be big to have all of those games at home in Norman. The Lloyd Noble Center isn't really a premier venue, nor is it extremely raucous, but it's always good to play at home, regardless of what the environment is.
Yeah,
like.
yeah, and they're a perfect 6-0 at home. Well, for what that's worth, and as you said, it's not necessarily it's not Rupp Arena, but it is one of the places where Oklahoma has been successful. Let's flip over to the women's side, because this is a team right now on a tear, 12-1 in the non-conference. Their only loss is to a top 5 team in the country, UCLA, in the early part of the season. What do you make of what the women have been able to do so far, and being able to carry this momentum as they go into SEC play on Thursday?
Yeah, the women are definitely the better team between the two.
Yeah.
I mean, they have higher expectations, they've got a higher ceiling, and I mean, they came into the season as a preseason top 10. I think they were number 6 in the preseason. The one thing that I would have liked to seen is them maybe play a little bit more of a competitive game against UCLA. Like, it's pretty clear to me that they're not on the UCLA level, just the way they played against them. And granted, it was early in the season. I think it was their second game, so it's hard to put too much stock into it. But I think UCLA kind of definitely showed, like, hey, you guys aren't to this level yet. And part of that will be Aaliyah Chavez. And, how much can she grow this year as a freshman? What level can she get to? Because that's essentially how far this team can go, is to see where Aaliyah Chavez can get as a player this year. One of my concerns with her had been just kind of like, she kind of had like Carmelo Anthony stat lines, where it was just like she'd get a lot of points, but on 18 shots, and you're like, well, we'd like to see it a little more efficient. And I think she has become a little bit more efficient. I think she's starting to find her way a little bit, and how she fits into this team. And obviously, when you have Reagan Beers down low, you got to get her the ball. And I think they've got some really good perimeter players, but I do think ultimately they want to work inside out, because once you can draw all the defenders in to get, try and stop Reagan Beers, that opens you up for Peyton Verhulst and Chavez and Zaya Van to knock down some 3-point shots. And I think they have better shooters, or maybe not better shooters, but they've got better shooting this year. And I think Chavez is a big part of that. She's shown that she's able to knock down the 3-ball pretty consistently. So I think that really raises the floor of this team, and they'll probably be hovering around that, top 10 range all season. But as we know, the SEC this year is extremely tough in women's basketball, and they may be the 5th best team in the conference, and that could still be, they could still be a top 10 team despite that.
Oh, goodness.
And that schedule just, wow.
That's brutal. That is brutal.
You know it's coming, and then you look at that and you're like, wow, that is just, yeah. I mean, they get LSU and South Carolina at home this year, which will be helpful, but I still don't know if that really leads to you getting the wins. They did play LSU really tough last year in Baton Rouge, and I was pretty surprised by that, just like the way that they were able to keep that game so close. So who knows, maybe now it's at Norman this year, you're able to beat them. That would be a huge win. But yeah, they made it to the Sweet 16 last year, and I'd like to see them be able to, kind of push that a little bit more this year. Maybe they can make it to an Elite Eight, and, if all the cards are stacked right, maybe a Final Four. But again, it's all going to come down to Aaliyah Chavez, and that's a lot of pressure to put on a true freshman. But she seems completely unfazed by any, expectations or anything like that. She's been delivering so far. It's really cool to see her kind of grow and develop this year as a true freshman.
Absolutely. Let's listen to Coach on one of her stars, Zaya Van, going into SEC play.
She's just having fun playing. Like she's just playing basketball, and she plays both ends, and she takes a lot of pride in every possession. She stays in the moment. She doesn't think about the scoreboard. She doesn't think about what she did wrong the play before or what she has to do the next play. She's doing a really good job of just playing, and you can see it in her, and you can see just how confident that she is. When she made mistakes a year ago, you could read it all over her. Now she might get angry or she might have a slight emotion, but she moves on. And I think that's a testament of her maturity, but also that she knows that she just has put in a lot of work and that she can move on and she can reset. And I think it shows that she's really close with her team. I think she believes in them and they believe in her.
Holden, what's going on with the Thunder and the Spurs? Because it seems like the Spurs have had their number here. 0-3, the Thunder go against San Antonio so far.
And they were all within the last 2 weeks too.
Yeah.
They hadn't played them, and then you get them 3 times in 2 weeks. And you had the NBA Cup semifinals game, which I think was probably the most surprising of the losses, just because it's a bigger stage. And the Spurs are kind of like the Thunder, maybe like a year or two ago, where they, like you can see that they have the really good potential, but do they have the experience to kind of win that? Right. And so that's where I was kind of surprised. It's just because, especially at that point in time, the Thunder had just been on a roll.
Mm-hmm. Did we lost Holden for a second? Yeah, froze up just here, and it's kind of like what's going on with the Thunder right now.
The Thunder are just freezing up right now.
The offense just seems frozen.
It feels like we were literally just talking with Holden a few weeks ago about, hey, the Thunder they just tied the best start in NBA history. I believe it was 27-1.
Right.
And we were talking the Warriors might have some company here pretty soon.
Yes.
But as of late, it's just been so tough for them, and it seems like the Spurs. I still think it's a little early. I believe we have them back. Holden, we got you.
Yes.
Yes.
I think I'm back.
Yeah. So. We were just saying, the freeze is kind of like
by Wemby, I guess.
Yeah, you got blocked by Wemby. Yeah.
No, we were saying that this it just feels like and you were mentioning this point, the fact that the Spurs feel like you're almost looking into a mirror in the past about what this Spurs team looks like as compared to the Thunder. Do you think this is a growing concern, because if this is a playoff series, that this will be a 3-0 series as of right now, and as you mentioned, it's been within a really tight window.
Yeah, and I think Wemby even mentioned that too, how it kind of did feel like a playoff series where you've played them 3 times in like 12 days or whatever it was. And he said that they gained some very valuable intelligence from playing this Thunder team. So I think that does, cause some concern, but I also would just like to see them actually do it in the playoffs. Like, it's one thing to do it in the regular season, but to do it in the playoffs, I think that'll really be the kind of the benchmark for the Spurs. But yeah, they definitely sent a message to the league, whether they, think they did or not. But I think that, just the way the Thunder had looked before playing the Spurs, it was like, because I think they were 25-1.
25-1,
yeah. And then they lost to the Spurs, then they lost to the Wolves, and then they lost to the Spurs 2 more times. And it's like, whoa. Definitely definitely makes the Thunder seem more vulnerable than they did at one point. Because at 25-1, you had all the talk about, oh, are they going to break the Warriors record for most wins in a season? And now, I think teams can see this and think, well, hey, we can beat this team, and they're maybe a little bit vulnerable. The Thunder have obviously kind of been shuffling players in and out all season with, players getting hurt and kind of missing some time and everything like that. In fact, Isaiah Hartenstein is going to miss tonight's game against the Hawks, so that'll be an interesting one to see how they play without him. But for a while it seemed like it didn't matter who was in the lineup; they just kept winning games. But I think really they need to be able to field a consistent group together and really kind of start to get back on track here. But beating the 76ers was nice yesterday. Granted, they didn't have Joel Embiid, which I can't remember a time that the Thunder played the 76ers that Embiid played. So,
yeah, exactly.
Load management.
But I think that was a good mark to kind of like, hey, let's hit the reset button. We're not playing the Spurs anymore. We don't have to see Wemby and Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell, and Keldon Johnson went off against them too.
Right.
So it was a good reset, and you get the Trae Young and the Hawks tonight, so that'll be another good one to just kind of flush that out of your system. And I think they've already done that. They preach the 0-0 mindset, and so that'll be a big thing for them this year. But it'll be super interesting to see if the Spurs and Thunder end up getting matched up in the playoffs at some point. Just depending on how the seeds shake out. If they're the 1 and the 2, then maybe we get a crazy Western Conference Finals, which would essentially probably be the NBA Finals.
Yes,
but,
considering how the East has looked so far this year. Holden, it was a busy night for you, my man, with the Sooners, the Cowboys, and the Thunder all playing tonight. Thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Yeah, and I'm glad Wemby didn't block me again before I signed off here.
He stuck to just one block there. We really appreciate your time, buddy.
All right. See you guys.
See you, brother. Holden Cruzmark joining us from Oklahoma City. Really fun time. And like he said, football is now put to bed officially, so they can focus now all on basketball. And really for all three programs, the women's program, the men's program, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and the Thunder, it feels like their state's in a really good place on the court.
Yeah, and I think the Thunder have obviously started to transition, at least for now, the Sooner State into more of a basketball state. As of right now. I mean, it's hard to ignore the dominance there, but I think Porter Moser, in regards to the OU men's basketball side, he's got those guys in a good spot right now. We took a look at the schedule upcoming, and it's going to be pretty tough, but again, you get all of those tough games at home in January, and then the women's basketball schedule. I mean, if they go 5-0 during that stretch, they're undeniably the best team in the country. I don't even care.
Oh, no question. No question about it. 3 top 5 teams in the early part of the slate there for the women. It will be a difficult role. We'll look at the AP poll coming up a little bit later on our show. Coming up next, we stick with more talk in and around the Southeastern Conference. Stay with us. We're back here on Southeast Sports Plus. We broke down the LSU Houston game a little earlier on the program. Another SEC team suffered a loss in the Gator Bowl. The Missouri Tigers ended up falling there in that game. It's been a weird year for Missouri overall. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, you lose one of your star quarterbacks, as Eli Drinkwitz was just trying to let the quarterback competition play out in the year. They lost Sam Horn, then they ended up losing Bo Pribula in the middle of the year. They found a running game with Ahmad Hardy. For a while, he led the nation in yardage, and then towards the end of the season, obviously the offense did not look as crisp as it did early on in the year, and then fall to the Cavaliers, 13-7 there in the Gator Bowl. Just an odd season overall for a program that had a lot of life going into it.
It was such an odd season, but it was the perfect way to end the odd season because it was such an odd game. I mean, you look at it, and that first drive, Virginia could not stop Ahmad Hardy at all. I think he had that big 43-yard run that set up I think it was a 5-yard run from Jamal Roberts to open the scoring. And you thought, all right, well, Virginia is probably just going to roll over. You know, the mentality is down after losing the ACC championship and missing out on the playoff. And then it was just like, Mizzou could not get anything going the rest of the way. The first drive, it took 7 plays, go 74 yards and a touchdown. But the last 10 drives, 41 plays, 186 yards. You punt the ball 4 times. You turn it over on downs 3 times. Interception, missed field goal. It was just like everything that could have gone wrong ended up going wrong. And I think the one thing that really signified the end for this team this year was, you know, it almost felt like they tried to feed it to Ahmad Hardy too much.
Right.
When I was watching the game, it was just like, all right, Virginia, they let him have that 40-yard run on the first drive of the game.
Right.
And then after, they were like, we're going to make it a priority to stop the run and make Matt Zollers beat us. And he didn't. And honestly, Ahmad Hardy was getting very frustrated, and that was something that I really wasn't expecting to see out of a guy like him. And I don't know how that's going to – you know these scouts and everything at the NFL level are going to be watching. And I mean, they do look for stuff like this, like attitude and stuff like that on the field. So, you know, it's just something that you kind of got to worry about moving forward. But it was just such a weird game on all fronts. I mean, Virginia, I think, had a 10-minute drive to start the second half.
They did, yeah. And I mean, obviously, the final score ended up being 13-7. But you mentioned it there at the very beginning of the game. It just felt like it was going to be the Ahmad Hardy show, and he was just going to end off the year on a really strong note. He ends up in the day with 15 carries for 89 yards. And we were talking with some of our friends there over in the Richmond area about this Virginia team. And, you know, obviously they ended up losing to Duke in the ACC championship. There you see Ahmad Hardy's numbers, 5.9 yard average, which is, I mean, obviously really, really good. Had a 43-yard breakout run there. But this is a team to me in Virginia that, and I want to make sure I got it right, gave up 27 to Duke earlier, and just felt like Missouri was going to be able to, you know, not necessarily put up the whatever score they wanted to, but you would figure at least 3 touchdowns there in that game, and for them to only get 7 at the very beginning, and it's not like some dominant, crazy Virginia defense. It just felt to me that things were a little strange there for his squad.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was because Bo Pribula didn't play. Obviously, he intends to enter the transfer portal coming up this Friday, but it's just I don't know what I really don't know what to say about this team, because this is, 3 years in a row now where this team expects to be
in the playoff.
In the playoff, in the top ranks of the SEC.
Right.
And they get off to these hot starts, but it just seems like they lose one game and then they just lose it all.
Right.
Like, if you get what I mean. Like,
yes.
You're riding high. You win all of these games. You lose a close one. In this case, it was the Alabama game. You had a chance to win the game.
Right.
Bo Pribula threw a couple of picks there, including one that ended up sealing the game. And then it just felt like the wheels just fell off.
Right. And it felt like it was almost unnecessary how the wheels fell off on for this football team. And like I said, it started with the quarterback at the beginning of the season. It just felt like that position was never really solidified, even when it was with Pribula. Then he ends up getting hurt. Coach Eli Drinkwitz talked about those offensive struggles, only scoring 7 points. Only in the first quarter of the football game.
I don't know. I thought the first drive we had a great rhythm. The second drive we had a good rhythm. You know, we couldn't convert some third downs, and then, you know, that the muffed punt right there. We were just out of sorts. There was a third and 8, and we run a 7-yard route. There was a 3rd and 4, and we throw the ball behind them that should have been a clear first down. So we were just off, and then, after the muff punt, just didn't have a great sequence there, and then obviously the missed field goal kind of took away the momentum. We were never really able to get it back. They went on that, 12-minute drive to start the third quarter, had 2 4th downs, and it just, we never at that point were able to get in and settle in on what we needed to do.
So this is a really interesting and precarious situation for this Missouri team, obviously with the quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Zollers comes in. Yes, he is a freshman, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But what did you make of his time as he did come in as a fill-in? If you want to count the bowl game, you can count the bowl game. But what do you think about him moving forward with this football team?
Well, there's no doubt that out of high school, this guy had talent.
Absolutely.
And I think Mizzou thinks very highly of him. I think Eli Drinkwitz does think very highly of Matt Zollers. But is he Mizzou's quarterback moving forward? Not yet, in my opinion. I think when you look at his progression, again, he was a freshman this year, so and I think our friend there, Kevin Ryans in St. Louis, said some of these, I think it was the Texas A&M game, he was like, he was just zipping the ball because he was just so nervous. And I think that's when you go up against a team like Texas A&M, you're going to be nervous. At the time, undefeated Texas A&M. But when you look at his progression moving forward, I think if you're Missouri, you've got to go out in the portal one more time.
Yes.
And I think, in my opinion, you got to get a guy with 1 year of eligibility left that can just fill in for this year and get you to that next year, because you want a proven guy, but at the same time, you got to be able to dish out the money for a proven guy.
Correct.
That can also help develop Matt Zollers, because my guess is we're going to have like an Arch Manning development. Now, I know Quinn Ewers got a few years there at Texas before Arch took over, but I think you've got to give him 1 more year of development, learning from another quarterback, learning Eli Drinkwitz's system before you really are like, all right, let's make this guy the future.
Right. He has all the intangibles, 6'4", 215 pounds. And you talked about his arm earlier. He ends the season with 503 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, QBR of 40.9. Of course, some of it was mop-up duty, and then some of it towards the end, obviously, was being able to fill in there when Perdula got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see if Eli Drinkwitz sticks with Matt Zollers moving forward, or maybe get somebody out of the transfer portal to help revive this offense into 2026. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we wrap up hour number 1 with a look at the AP poll. Stay with us. Closing up the first hour here on Southeast Sports Plus. It's a busy basketball time right now as we march into SEC play. We'll take a look at the AP poll as we go into SEC play. For those that don't know, they give the voters a little bit of a rest during Christmas break. Yes. So this poll would be reflective of what we saw last week. This is the 25 through 21. I think beyond the teams that we do see here, like Georgia, the teams that we do not see here that fell out of the poll, teams like Kentucky, teams like Auburn, all top vote getters there in the SEC. But as we saw, the defending national champion and Georgia are here.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that Georgia is ranked ahead of their matchup against Auburn here coming up this weekend, and Auburn isn't ranked, as you mentioned. I think Kentucky could be I think you have to start to consider them even with 4 losses here. They've started to right the ship. I know I wrote them off for a little bit here, but I think they're starting to right the ship. Florida's got to find their groove. They got to get their guards rolling, and then Virginia also. It's nice to see what Virginia has been doing.
Absolutely. Both Illinois and Tennessee, they played over there in Nashville. Lots of SEC and ACC teams right here in the mix, including John Calipari's Arkansas team.
Yeah, and I believe Arkansas does open up against Tennessee here this weekend. So that's going to be one of those big time matchups to kick off SEC play. I mean, there's a lot of great games here to open up the conference play, and then Kansas and Louisville there at 17 and 16.
Yeah, kind of blue bloods there with both those programs. Alabama, they're in the top 15. They're at number 14. Texas Tech, who's obviously they've had great seasons over the last few years, in there in the top 15. And another blue blood there in North Carolina, and a storyline that you've been talking about, the highest ranked team in the SEC. It isn't Arkansas. It isn't Kentucky. It isn't Bama. It's those Vanderbilt Commodores.
Yep, and both the men's and the women's teams are undefeated as of right now. I know women open up play there on Thursday, and then the men open up on Saturday against South Carolina, so it should be a great game. But coming up in the top of hour number 2, I'm going to give you the reasoning why I think Alabama might be on upset watch this week against Kentucky.
Yeah, that should be a really big one to open up SEC play. Inside the top 10, we go BYU, led by a very, very talented freshman there. Inside the top 10, Michigan State, some of the teams that we're just used to being at the top of the polls. Michigan State, team like Houston that made the Final Four last year, Duke and Coach Fuse Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah, we talked last week about Duke suffering its first loss of the season, and then we didn't mention Houston getting that nice win over Arkansas there up in Newark, New Jersey. So I think Kelvin Sampson's just got those guys rolling yet again. It seems like he always reloads, and his teams always have a veteran leader, and Emmanuel Sharp has definitely been that.
Exactly. And then finally, inside the top 5, some teams that have just basically rotated positions at the top 5. At one point, Purdue was number 1. I think UConn held the number 1 spot. I think it might have been last year. And then 3 teams that are undefeated on the season: Iowa State, Michigan, and Arizona.
I don't care. Michigan's still number 1. I'm going to be on my high horse until they lose.
And the coaches poll agrees with you. They are number 1 there in that poll. Our number 1 is now in the books. Come up next, we have our number 2, Southeast Sports Plus. Stay with us.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
After a very entertaining few months in non-conference action, the SEC play will begin coming up this weekend. Alabama and Kentucky, two powerhouse programs over the last few years. Under Coach Mark Pope and Nate Oates, they will tip it off at 11 a.m. there at Coleman Coliseum. A really interesting, intriguing game between two teams that were ranked inside the top 15 coming into the season. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. And Patrick, we have talked about the SEC success on the court going into the season overall. 14 teams set a new record. 14 of the 16 teams made the big dance last year, including number 1 overall seed Auburn, a team in Alabama who made the number 1 overall seed the year before that, and then a Kentucky program who, under Mark Pope in year 1, really made a big climb here. So I think there's a lot of general interest in the way both these teams will start SEC play.
Before we even talk about this game, can you believe it's already SEC play?
I mean,
I feel like we were literally just talking about,
the season opening.
Yeah, the season opening, football going to be starting here pretty soon. Yep. And then you blink and here we are. I mean, SEC play starting this Saturday. I believe it starts this Thursday on the women's side.
On the women's side, that's right.
On New Year's Day. So, I mean, it's just been absolutely crazy and no better way to start SEC play, in my opinion, than Kentucky, Alabama. And it's been a tough year. It was a very tough start for Kentucky, especially being booed away from home. I believe that game was in Nashville against Gonzaga, being booed off the court at halftime, and I think the final score of that one, I think they lost by 40, if I'm not mistaken. To now you're starting to find a little bit of momentum here. You got a couple of nice wins, especially over your old rival in Indiana, the first time that game was played in quite some time, and then another nice win in Atlanta over St. John's. So it seems like it's starting to trend in the right direction for Kentucky, and they're going up against an Alabama team, which I don't want to say they're on fraud watch this early, but it's hard to ignore the struggles with rebounding.
Especially rebounding,
and how many shots they take per game and how many points they give up. Yeah, they score a ton of points, but they also give up so many points. So it's just, I don't want to say they're on fraud watch yet, but I mean, it's kind of trending towards that direction.
Right, and it feels like their problems are fixable because, like you said, a lot of times it's rebounding, and a lot of coaches will tell you rebounding is an effort thing, and energy and hustle. And it feels like Kentucky, as you mentioned, has really found that next year, because ever since they lost to Gonzaga in that game that you mentioned where they got booed off the court, before they lost to North Carolina, before that they lost to Tom Izzo and Michigan State, and then, of course, lost their rivalry game to Louisville there on Veterans Day. But since that game that they lost here recently to Gonzaga, it's been a win over North Carolina Central. It's been a win over Indiana. It's been a win over St. John's. It's been a win over Bellarmine right there in the Louisville area. And so I think this team is, like you said, trending in the right direction. But as you mentioned, for Alabama, it just feels like a team that is not playing great basketball, although they feel like they have the pieces, LeBaron Philon being one of them. It feels like they have the guys to get it done. It's just that Nate Oates and company, whenever they do lose, you can literally, if you look at the score and you just go to one stat, you go to the box score and look at the rebounds, and that's where they've been getting blown off the court.
But the crazy part is when you look at the rebound, when you look at some of these team stats, I mean, Alabama's averaging almost 42 rebounds per game, and they're out rebounding Kentucky per game.
Right.
So, I mean, it's still just crazy to look at. But when I look at this, there's two numbers, not only the rebounds that you brought up, but it's also the points per game and the points against per game. And I think it's the points against per game that really sticks out and the alarm bells are starting to ring in my head about this because as I've said since basketball season started, it feels like Nate Oates runs an NBA-style offense where you just you take a bunch of shots, you take a bunch of three-pointers, and if they go in, you're winning these games with ease. I mean, we just saw them drop a 100-burger last year in the NCAA tournament. And then next game, just unable.
Next game,
Just you get eliminated the next game because you can't hit the three-pointer. So it's just you live and you die by the three. And I think Nate Oates is an incredible coach. I really do think he's turned the tide, no pun intended, for the Alabama men's basketball program. But I think his coaching style doesn't really play well in March. And that's just one thing that just kind of concerns me because you definitely want to have a good defensive team in March. You want good guard play, and Alabama has the good guard play.
Yes.
But it almost feels like that's going to get canceled out by the play of your bigs, who you just haven't found any consistency at all this year, especially with rebounding, as you mentioned. And I just feel like we're going to be sitting here in March, and Alabama's going to be eliminated because they allowed 15-plus offensive rebounds.
Right. That's the biggest thing is a second-chance opportunities for this basketball team. I had to go on to KenPom just to see where they rank, and not surprisingly, they're number 3 in offensive rating. This Alabama team is 68 in defensive rating for this team.
That's an alarm bell.
Yes, exactly. And that's the reason why they rank 17 according to KenPom, 14 to the coaches. So it's about the same. Kentucky, by comparison, is 19th according to KenPom. A little more balanced offensively and defensively, 27th on defense and on offense, and then 24th there on defense. So it just feels like Kentucky's a better balanced basketball team right now, and as you mentioned, playing with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to find that groove as they head into SEC play. They got those 4 straight wins, as we mentioned. I think the big one, in my opinion, was the one over St. John's. So they have a common opponent, or they have a win over a common opponent against Alabama. Obviously, Alabama, second game of the year, went up to Madison Square Garden and beat Rick Pitino and St. John's. But the reason why I honestly think, I really do think Kentucky has a chance here, even though it's at Coleman Coliseum.
Right.
Just because of that rebounding factor. And it's just going to be something that we have to talk about this entire year. I think Otega Oweh, I wasn't in the locker room for any of these games, obviously. I just sit in this chair. I go home, and then I come back, and I sit in this chair, and I just talk about this. So I don't know what Mark Pope said to him, but I guarantee you he probably challenged him and be like, you're the – I don't think he brought up the fact that he was the SEC preseason player of the year. But he basically, in kindly putting it, hey, you need to get your act right here pretty soon because this team's going to go nowhere if you don't get your act right. And it seems like he started to live up to that challenge. He took Mark Pope's challenge, and this team has just started to get better. And not only is Otega Oweh playing well, but also Cam Williams is starting to knock down those three-pointers here. So, I mean, as long as these guys start playing in their roles, Kentucky is going to start living up to the hype that they had in the preseason. It's just taking a little bit of time for this team to gel, I think.
And basketball is a trend sport that you want to be playing your best later in the year. So this might be coming at a good time for Coach Mark Pope and company. You mentioned Cam Williams as one of the guys that Coach spoke about, especially being able to hit those threes from downtown.
I think it was good for him to make him here, too. I think it was good for him to make him here in a rep. But at the end of the day, I've just never been, I think I've told you guys this for the last 2 months, I've never been in a space where the numbers don't actually translate. It's just time. It's just time and reps. And he's an elite level shooter, and so it's just his time. That's all it is sometimes it's the first day and sometimes it's the 60th day. But when you're a really good shooter, you make shots. It's not, when you're like, our NOAA numbers always translate into on-court performance. They always do. It's never had an anomaly where it doesn't. And so this is just, this is how it should be. So
Like I said, I was kidding about the 8 for 10 every single night, maybe every other night.
It's a really interesting dynamic here with this Kentucky team. I was looking at the sports books to see if there was a number on this game just yet. I don't see one as of right now, and more than likely what they'll do is they'll come up after the teams play today, like yes. Alabama plays Yale today. I think Kentucky's also on the court today in the final non-conference game of the season. But let's just say that Alabama is the favorite, which I'm thinking that the sports books will have them as a favorite. Do you see the Wildcats being able to shock Alabama?
Well, I mean, ESPN has them according to the analytics, at a 38.5% chance of winning at the time of this airing. So I wouldn't be shocked. I think Alabama's going to be, if going off of that percentage, probably an 8.5 point favorite.
Right.
That's probably what I would see them opening up at. I really do think Kentucky can beat this Alabama team, and I think as I mentioned about the rebounding, but I almost feel like this has got to be a killer to your morale if you're Alabama and you lose the SEC opener after, you have to face the noise about all of these rebounding problems. You can't win these big games. You went 2-2 in your big stretch against nothing but ranked opponents earlier.
Correct.
But you also lost that game to Arizona, and that one was like, wow, like we thought we were one of the best teams in the country, and the then number 2 team in the country comes in to our home away from home in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a short drive away, so it basically was a home game for Alabama.
Yeah.
And then to just get dominated in the second half, that's just got to be alarming. And then if Kentucky can just come in and just clean the glass. That's really all you got to do is just clean the glass.
Yeah, it's one of those things that Nate Oates is talking about, is about being able to be a good rebounding team and, like you said, kind of tighten the gap between the upper echelon and where Alabama sits right now.
Yeah, he's tough, makes tough plays on the glass. He ended up being our leading rebounder with 8. We got to find somebody at that 4 spot who can rebound the ball and still give us some offensive skills as well, kind of combination of both. And he's looking like, he's going to be able to do it. I didn't think his hip, I'm sure it's still bothering him. He's got it all bandaged up and everything, but it looked like it was a lot better than it had been against Arizona. He played a lot more passive in that Arizona game. He brought his aggressiveness back to this game, so it's great to have him back in. I think these 4 days off over Christmas will be really good for him. Get his hip totally all healed up, I hope, so he can kind of take that aggressiveness to the offensive end as well as the rebounding stuff.
Now, obviously, the rebounding is one aspect of it, but what Alabama is doing well is scoring the basketball. Yes. They have one of the best players in America, LeBaron Philon, who's actually from here in Mobile. He was here last week doing a toy drive for all the kids in town, now back with the basketball program. And he is a player that can help spur this team, especially from the offensive standpoint. And I know Coach would probably want him to be one of the catalysts defensively and on the boards for the squad.
Yeah, and I almost don't really want to say, like, hey, does he have to carry this team this year? But it almost does kind of feel that way. He's 8th in Division I in 21.9 points per game. We talked about it to open up the year. It seemed like he was just dropping, nice numbers night in, night out against some of the better opponents, including St. John's. And his one-off game to open up the year was against Purdue, and that was one of the games that they ended up losing. I believe that was their first loss of the season. So it's just it's starting to trend in that direction, though, where he almost needs to have these high-scoring games just to offset the problems on the offensive or on the defensive glass, because as you mentioned, second chance points is what really killed them against Arizona, and it's going to hurt when you get into SEC play and you're going up against some of these teams that have these big men that are true glass cleaners and can go up and either put it back up or kick it out and you shoot the 3. And I think that's something that Kentucky has started to show that they can do, is, start to rein it in from deep.
Yep, he has 9 games where he scored at least 20 points, and twice in that run, actually 3 times now in that run, he scored 29. That's a career high. So, I mean, this is a guy that can do it if called upon to do it. But you're right, they're going to have to want to balance that offense there with the defense and see if they can get it done. LeBaron Philon and company will hit the court against Yale coming up early in the season to finish off the non-conference part of the schedule before playing Kentucky to open up SEC play. So looking forward to that as Bama and Kentucky get conference play started there in Tuscaloosa at Coleman Coliseum at 11 a.m. on Saturday. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Nashville, catch up with our good buddy Corey Curtis. Stay with us. We're back on Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 2 rolls on. We head over to Nashville, catch up with Corey Curtis. And Corey, this is a Vanderbilt football team that we have talked about a lot at the beginning of the season because there was a lot of hot air, but then they actually made the most of it. They obviously had a 10-2 season.
How many games did they win? How many games did they win?
Double digits, baby. You got double digits.
How many games did Auburn win?
Not double digits. I don't know if they've won double digits going the last 2 years.
How many games did Florida win? How many games did LSU win?
Right. All the teams.
These are powerhouses, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't know where you had them, or maybe Julian had them in the preseason poll. But I think a lot of the teams you just mentioned were ahead of Vanderbilt going into the season. But at the end of the day, their quarterback is a Heisman Trophy finalist, and they have a football team that was knocking on the doorstep there of the college football playoff. Now they're getting ready for the ReliaQuest Bowl over there in Tampa. How do you want to see this team as they match up against a really, really good Iowa defense?
Well, okay, first off, there are a number of different approaches teams take to bowl games. You know, like when you look at Tennessee, what they're looking at is moving towards next year, seeing what they've got towards next year. Other teams, you know, like Vanderbilt last year when they were a 6-win team, it was about winning a bowl game and having a winning record and kind of starting to establish winning. Well, where Vanderbilt's at right now is capping off a year. All right. Don't spoil your season by playing poorly in Tampa. Cap it off the right way. Show the committee that they were wrong. Show everybody that you are exactly what you said you are. And to do that, you're going to have to be deadly serious, because regardless of whatever Iowa is every year, they turn every game into a rock fight if you will let them. Ask Indiana, ask Oregon. They did it to both of those teams. And so, you know, they're going to need to start quickly. If you can get a lead against these guys, I think that's half the battle. And so they've got to come out ready to play, ready to take care of business. I think Clark Lee had a really good approach when it came out for time for bowl selections. You know, there was no pouting from Vanderbilt whatsoever, but you know, he said that, you know, he's followed through with most of what he said this year. We'll see if he can follow through with this one.
So one big thing that did come out ahead of this bowl game, and I honestly kind of found it a little bit surprising just because of how Clark Lee has been treating bowl games. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't that surprising that tight end Eli Stowers ended up opting out of this game. Were you a little bit shocked by that, or could you have seen that one coming?
No, I mean, I don't know what round he's going to get picked in, but he's going to be drafted in the first 2 days. And, you know, look, I would bet he wants to play in this football game, but his agent probably grabbed him and dragged him to the ground and said, "You're not playing in this football game."
Right.
I mean, if he's dinged at all, I always go back to Jalen Smith from Notre Dame, who was a top 5 pick and shredded his knee in a bowl game that almost completely stopped his NFL career. You know, Eli Stowers has nothing to prove in this football game, nothing at all.
Right.
He doesn't owe Vanderbilt anything. He's given Vanderbilt a ton. And so it's not surprising that a guy who's a projected day 1, day 2 pick is not going to play in this game. So, you know, it would have been a nice surprise had he in fact decided to play.
Right. And he helped lay that foundation for a really good offense. We got a chance to hear from Clark Lee about his superstar tight end.
Yeah, look, Eli Stowers and I met a number of times over the last couple of weeks, just talking about his future and what's best for him. And Eli's been such an incredible part of the success of this team, and I'm so proud to have him as a Vanderbilt football alum. And I said this from the get-go, his health is our health, his success is our success, and we support him and his decision not to play. I'm also very happy that he's been around and been with us and will be with us on Wednesday, and so he remains an important part of this team. But obviously, for where he's projected in the draft and for all that can mean for him and also for this program, I support him all the way.
So obviously a really great note to hear from your head coach that he supports him all the way. He kind of understands, and as you mentioned, he owes nothing to Vanderbilt, but it feels like there's a lot of mutual love there from Stowers to the university and back there as well. So a nice little footnote there for Vanderbilt football as they end the season there in Tampa and they rely, of course. Well, let's move to basketball because this is a really fun program. This is a really, really fun program. And
still undefeated, right?
We still undefeated, still 0 in the loss column, like Michigan.
What about the women's team?
Hey,
still undefeated, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They two really good
How's
basketball
Auburn
teams.
doing?
I don't know why Auburn's taking strays twice now.
I mean, why you gotta hate on the Tigers? I mean, they just lost their top wide receiver to the transfer portal.
It's been a bad couple of weeks.
They had a top receiver?
Deuce Knight now is hinting at potentially entering the portal. So, I mean, I think Auburn fans have it enough. Have it bad enough right now.
Not to mention they've lost to Diego Pavia 3 times already. They lost to him. And then
at least they won't see him anymore.
New Mexico State and then 2 other spots. But to this men's basketball program, the highest ranked SEC team right now. Top 15 there in the country, I think number 11. You mentioned it, they're undefeated with the likes of Michigan and Arizona and some of these other top teams. Can they keep this going as SEC play begins this weekend?
The amazing thing is like, they don't have like 5 stars or 4 stars. Mm-hmm. They just have guys who fit what Mark Byington wants to do, and that's get up and down the floor, shoot the basketball. I don't know how many stars Tyler Tanner had coming out, but he's from right down the street here at Brentwood Academy, and he's just an electric young player who can score. I mean, he looks like they grabbed him straight out of the Y. He's like 6'1", 150 pounds, but he's got handles and he can finish. He can finish away from the hoop. He can finish at the hoop. He can throw it down. And the great thing for them is they did have a game where they didn't shoot the basketball well, and that was at Memphis, and they still won that game in overtime. And I thought that was an extremely valuable game for them to shoot the basketball poorly and still find ways to win, not let it affect the other parts of their game. So they showed they can also win a lower scoring game on the road. They've got some guts to them, which, is not something we were able to say about Vanderbilt teams, when Bryce Drew was the coach or when Jerry Stackhouse was the coach. This team showed that, when they were struggling on the road, they could dig in. They've played some good teams. I mean, they went to Wake Forest. I don't know how good Wake is this year, but they went to Wake Forest and just drilled them.
Yeah. And
then they had they have SMU in the ACC Challenge.
That's right.
And they dropped them by I think 18.
Mm-hmm.
So they are battle tested to a degree, maybe not to what some of the blue bloods have done to start the year, but they have been consistent with what they have done, and and it's with his guys playing his way, their confidence is sky high. They're going to lose some games. There's no question about it. And truthfully, that's usually what shows you how to get better.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see, how much the scoring comes down as they start conference play, because we all know teams dig in a little bit more, once the conference schedule begins.
Well, I think that brings up my question when you brought up the battle testedness of some of these blue blood programs. When you take a look at the Vanderbilt schedule, they haven't really played a schedule quite like Alabama has played or Kentucky has played. But in your opinion, is this team still elite even though they haven't played any of these teams, and why?
I think it's fair to question it. I do. I would say I would say I wouldn't call them elite because they don't have an elite win on their schedule.
Yeah.
But I would call them, worthy of their ranking. All right, because where are they ranked? 11th?
11. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're not in the top 10. And that's despite being undefeated and despite being an SEC team. So the voters have said, we want to see a little bit more. And I think that's reasonable, but I think being 11th in the country also shows a healthy amount of respect. They're going to win some of those games when they play them, and they're going to lose some. I'll be very interested to see, what that ledger is, when the year is over, when they play the Alabamas and they play the Kentuckys, and see what the wins and losses are. Because look, they won some of those games last year, and they're a better team than they were a year ago.
Absolutely. Intensity.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. It does. It's kind of like, hey, we like where they are right now, but it's still left to be seen if they are the upper crust of college
there's
basketball.
Meat on the bone.
Yes.
They're very good, but there's meat on the bone for sure.
Exactly. Intensity is kind of a strong word. That's one of the words that the head coach Mark Byington used for his team. Let's listen to Coach.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. You can watch our guys, and they like each other. And they like basketball, and they have fun and great personalities. They don't care who gets the credit. And so this is a chance to play basketball they love to do. And it's going to be a continued building process. November, December basketball is prepping you for what's later on. We know there's tremendous challenges in January, February, March. But that's what we want. And there'll be some adversity, there'll be some bumps. But at the same time, this is a fun group. Really like coaching them. They come to work every single day, and it really is. You see our unselfish brand of basketball, and it's because they play basketball the right way and they care about each other.
Corey, Vanderbilt will obviously open up with South Carolina here this weekend. What sticks out to you the most about this matchup to open SEC play?
Well, I mean, for Vanderbilt, I think it's all about them, and I think can you get everybody into your game of going up and down the floor? I think Vanderbilt's certainly ahead of where South Carolina is at this point as they look to kind of reload. You can see, 94 points per game. That's a ridiculous number, and it's 51% field goals. I mean, they can shoot the basketball, and can the Gamecocks lock down defensively? Because if you pick Tyler Tanner, they've got three other guys who can shoot the ball.
Yep.
And I think that's the problem they're going to give everybody they play is you can't pick one guy to lock down. They're not built like that. They're not built like that. And as Mark Byington said at SEC Media Days, he stressed wanting to be bigger. And you're seeing that. Not just Tyler Tanner and Devin McLaughlin, but they've got other guys inside who can bang a little bit and still shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
So when it comes to South Carolina, it's just imposing your will, making them play your style, and then doing what you do. But it's the Southeastern Conference. If they come out and they don't shoot the basketball well,
right?
Like everybody, then you got to rely on your defense and your guts to see if you can pull it out. Now, if they're shooting 51%, which is what their season average is, there's not many teams that are going to beat them.
Right.
Okay? And so, there's not many teams in the country who are going to lose shooting 51%.
Yeah. Speaking of undefeateds, we talked about the men's team still with a 0 in the loss column. The women's team also have a 0 in the loss column there as well. This is a Commodore program that I think is shocking a lot of people. They will open up SEC play coming up a little bit later this week as well against Arkansas. What do you make of the women's start so far, and can they keep going through SEC play?
It's not surprising. Okay. Shea Ralph is an outstanding head coach. She spent a lot of time with Gina Auriemma. And she came in here and systematically put in place what she wanted to do. And, they lost Camille Pierre, who is outstanding, to North Carolina State in the transfer portal and have not missed a beat. And it's a totally different looking team this year, with Aubrey Galvin in the backcourt. With Michaela Blakes, who, by the way, scored 55 against Auburn last year.
That's 3.
we need to start. We'll get a tracker on the bottom.
We'll get a little counter on the bottom.
Ding, ding.
Corey CC stray shots at Auburn.
But no, she's an outstanding coach. Michaela Blakes is probably one of the best 3 players in the entire country.
Yeah.
And now she doesn't have to have the ball as much. So you would think she's not going to have to work quite as hard as she did last year at times. I still think when it gets to crunch time, they're going to want the ball in her hands. But, Galvin, despite being, I think she's 5'6", she's from up around Chicago. She's been close to a triple-double several times as a true freshman. She can shoot, she can pass. The biggest thing for her is keeping her from trying to be too flashy, do too much. But then they've got other girls, or women, I should say women, who fill roles.
Yep.
Passat from the outside was a transfer from Tennessee. She is, I would call her a streaky shooter from the outside, but she's extremely long. She's extremely long. And I'm not even going to try to say the woman's name from Texas who they got. But she has been exactly what they thought she would be.
Right.
And that is a rock solid defender and chips in offensively, and once in a while can be a double figure scorer for you. I mean, you know, look, if you can get Blake's in foul trouble, you know, you're going to have a chance, you know, for sure. If you find a way to slow her down, you're going to have a chance for sure. But there are not many people who've done that yet. Now, they've also had a couple of games this year where they didn't play great. They went to Clarksville here and played Austin Peay over at their arena. And I watched that game and was just like, you know, coaches hate these games, but they love them.
Yeah.
They love them. They love when they know they can take their team and just work them in practice this week because they didn't do what they wanted them to do in that game. And the score reflected that was a tough basketball game. The Govs gave them a run. So they have had moments where they have not looked perfect this year. And so we'll see. I mean, that, as I said, that undefeated record's not going to stay.
No.
But I think for both these teams, I think you have to be shooting at the Sweet 16. And I think the women's team can make a legitimate swing at a regional final.
And
so
that was going to be my question. Do you think this is the year that they do make that deep run, or do you think they're still 1 or 2 years away?
For the women?
Yes.
Well, look, Michaela's a sophomore.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's go time. I mean, she got to learn. She got to learn last year, and she also showed that when I joked about the Auburn performance. She had to. Okay.
Yes. Right.
They were down, and she had to take over the basketball game, and she took over the basketball game. And so she can still do that, and she can do it inside, and she can do it outside. And I mean, you guys know, when you get to that time of the year, that's when stars are born.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's when the great players stand up and say, I am, and we will, because I am not going to let us lose. And so that's the next chapter for Michaela Blakes. And I think they've got good pieces around her. I mean, I understand why Camille Pierre left. She probably got a lot of money to go in NC State #1, but you know, when you've got Michaela Blakes and then you've got Aubrey Galvin coming in, who, I mean, those are 2 ball dominant players. I don't know how many touches there are going to be left for Camille. And I think she looked at that as well. And so, you know, I understand why she would depart. I do. And I think, you know, that's kind of what the transfer portal is all about as teams take shape. But I say that at the same time, I'd love to see this team with Camille Pierre on it.
Absolutely.
I mean, they might be ranked like number 2 or 3 in the country. Where are they at right now? They're also around 11 or 12. Right?
I think 8 or 9, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Their schedule has not been brutal either. They just played some school I have literally never heard
Stonehill. I'd never heard of it either. Yeah.
We made up a nickname for them, like the Stonehill Stonies. Because when you pulled them out of ESPN, there was no nickname.
Wow. Hey, they did what good teams do, though. They held them to 50 points. They scored 109 there.
It was a bludgeoning. It was awful.
And a huge win. A couple of really interesting games for this women's team, though. Opened the SEC slate against Arkansas on the road, and then their first home game. Their first home game in the SEC. Oh yeah. First home game in the SEC, though. Ken Mulkey and the LSU Tigers will be coming into town. So a really nice start there for, I think.
Those 2 head coaches are a little different.
Very. Just
a little different.
Yeah, exactly. Corey, you're the greatest, man. Thank you so much for your time.
I am, right?
We've been saying that all the time, but we're reminding you once again. You guys and my daughter. I got 3 people in my corner. That's it. Absolutely. Corey, thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Later.
Absolutely. Corey Curtis joining us from Nashville. Lots going on there. You have obviously a bowl game coming up. The Tennessee Volunteers will be in town. The men's basketball team, the women's basketball team, both undefeated on the season, and the Titans with some signs of life.
Yeah, well, up until this past week, where Tyler Shuck and the Saints, who actually have signs of life. Something's brewing down there in New Orleans. Honestly, we're going to talk about the NFL here in a minute. We're going to talk about some of these pivotal matchups, but I think if somehow the Saints were able to get A.J. Brown, away from the Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
They could be playoff contenders. No, they're still plenty of years away from being true Super Bowl contenders.
Right, right.
Just get Tyler Shough some weapons there on the outside.
They have looked pretty decent under Kellen Moore there in his first year with the Saints. Speaking of, we will talk much more NFL as we're getting to a very, very crucial part of the season with the playoffs just around the corner. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus as we roll on with the college football playoff a little bit later this week. The intensity is really heating up in the NFL as well. Week 17 now in the books, and now Week 18 coming up. And it feels like every year we have some drama going into the final week of the regular season. This year is absolutely no different, Patrick. And I was watching the games yesterday with obviously like rooting for storylines going into the final week. Of course, everybody has their team, but if you're just a fan of the NFL, you want high drama in the final week of the regular season, and we're getting it in a few games.
I would just also like to point out that I won yesterday.
Nice.
I won
nice.
$190.
Nice.
You see this right here? That's a nice win. I was out in Maryland, so I wasn't in Alabama, obviously, betting. I was up in Maryland, in a state where you can bet.
Yep.
Coming back from spending some time with my fiance's family for Christmas. Again, I hope everyone had a great holiday week there. But I think this past week was one of those instances where it was like you could feel the so-called script brewing. And something that I like to abide by is we like to talk about our best bets on the show.
Yeah.
And I looked at the game yesterday. Well, more so the game on Saturday with the Ravens and the Packers, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Ravens Steelers game tomorrow.
Right.
And just seeing what Derrick Henry did in that game. And there's something that I like to call it, you always got to bet the script. And heading into that Browns-Steelers game yesterday, I just felt like there was some mischievous activity going on around there. And Shedeur Sanders tried every chance he had to throw the game away, but Aaron Rodgers also did the same thing. So it's like, who even wants to win that division? But this one, you're going to almost say the same thing in the NFC South. The Panthers and Tampa Bay both lost this past week, setting up a winner-take-all spot in the wild card round. You'll win the NFC South. You'll host a game, which is still ridiculous because if the Buccaneers win this game, they'll have a losing record, and they can host a first-round playoff game, which is just mind-boggling. That should just never exist.
Right.
Like, go to the NBA where you just have straight seating.
Yes.
Like, this is just absolutely utter madness.
100%. And if you take a look at it, like that NFC South has just been, it feels like every year it's a different winner. It's such a weird division. And Tampa Bay looked to be the not only the favorite, but they were looking to be in a really good space there to be able to win the division with ease. Oh, yeah. And Emeka Mbuka looks really good to start the season off. Obviously, Baker was playing at an MVP level at the beginning of the season. Like Todd Bowles had solidified himself as a coach. Mike Evans was out there looking great. Then they got bit by the injury bug. Chris Godwin gets hurt. Bucky Irving gets hurt. And at the same time, Carolina's over there just building confidence day by day with former Alabama quarterback Bryce Young.
Yeah, and it seemed like we were just talking about 2 months ago about how, hey, Baker Mayfield might win the MVP this year. A lot of talk in the offseason was about how will the departure of Liam Cohen actually affect this team heading up to Jacksonville. We've seen what he's been able to do. He's the first head coach to win 12-plus games after a team won, I think, 4 or less games in the year before. So, I mean, just unreal turnaround there in good old Saxonville, as they used to call it. But it's just starting to kind of blow my mind a little bit because usually when you get healthy, you should be getting better.
Correct.
And the Buccaneers were not healthy in the beginning of the year. They obviously had to deal with injuries to Mike Evans. He came back for a game, and then he injured his collarbone, so then had to go back on IR. Chris Godwin was hurt. But now they have all these guys back, and they just cannot seem to string it together. And Baker Mayfield just all of a sudden just cannot seem to, take care of the football. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in the last 3 games. I'd like to get your input on this because it almost feels like since Mike Evans has come back, he's trying so hard to keep that 1,000-yard streak alive. That's just not going to happen. So he's forcing all of these passes, and they ended up getting picked off. I mean, it seemed like, I don't know if you were watching the Panthers game literally just 2 weeks ago, but the game-sealing interception, he just tried to force it to Mike Evans. Like, what are you doing?
Right. And it just felt like, okay, obviously, Mike Evans is kind of your go-to guy, but you're right. It felt like at the beginning of the season, it was a more natural flow to the offense. And now it does feel more forced to get these guys the football, guys like Mike Evans, because it felt like at the beginning of the year with the emergence of Mbuka, Evans was like, not necessarily the second target, but he just felt like another nice piece to this offense. And you're right. I mean, the 1,000-yard streak, I don't think it's going to get broken at all outside of just some crazy games. And it looks like they're trying to force those crazy games. There you saw Baker Mayfield stats over the last 2 games. But you're right. It feels like this team is now healthy, but this team feels fractured in a way, even though they're all coming together. And that was the biggest thing because when they were winning, when they were banged up, you were like, oh, wait, just wait till they get healthy, and this team will look sensational, and it's looked everything but.
I'm going to make a comparison, and it hurts me to make this comparison.
Oh, okay.
This year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the equivalent of this year's New York Mets.
Just
had the division locked away.
Up,
halfway through the year.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, just started losing these games in inexplicable fashion to the point where you lose the game against Carolina in Charlotte just 2 weeks ago, and you've just been on this free fall. Again, the Mets were on that free fall too.
Towards the end of the year,
Towards the end of the year, they got swept by the Phillies.
It just felt like the whole time you kept saying, well, they'll regroup. They'll find their way, both with the Mets and with the Bucks.
But in both instances, it's going to come down to the last game of the year. All you have to do is win the game, and you're in the playoffs. So, I just know from experience, because you look at that Mets-Marlins game to end the year, all they had to do was win the game, and they were in the playoff.
Against a hapless Marlins team that was not going anywhere.
And the only difference with this one is, obviously, whoever wins this game is going to be in the playoffs, but it's just been such a shocking development that almost makes me think, if they lose this game, there is absolutely no saving Todd Bowles.
No,
he is so far gone. If they lose this game, you just cannot come back from this and expect to have your job the next year, because I mean, all of the play calling has basically been on him, and it just goes to show you how good of a play caller Liam Cohen was.
Yeah. We're seeing whenever teams lose their coordinators, the drop off that they had the following those teams had the following year. The Lions now officially eliminated out of the playoffs as well. They lost their offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who's now killing it right now with the Chicago Bears. They lost their defensive coordinator in Aaron Glenn, who's struggling with the Jets. Who doesn't struggle with the Jets? But you're right. It feels like this team has kind of lost a step. And I'm with you. Todd Bowles has been a great coach, but you saw him lose his cool. What was it? Maybe 3 weeks ago now, maybe 4 weeks ago now.
The Atlanta game.
Yes, after Atlanta, and talks about discipline. Talked about the want to, the desire. It wasn't the tangible things. It wasn't we're banged up or whatever. This was all like effort stuff. And it feels like if that's what the head coach is saying out loud, then it must have been brewing for a really long time, and they just have felt really disjointed ever since then.
Look, I think they are obviously on the wrong side of the momentum train. I think the Panthers have to come into this game with all the confidence in the world, even though they had a poor showing against Seattle. But, I mean, a lot of teams do have a poor showing against the Seahawks defense this year. But, I mean, Bryce Young had 50-something pass yards. And honestly, the defense ended up keeping them in this game here. But it's one of those things where it's like, can Bryce Young – it seemed like just a few years ago. And here's the thing. Here's what I will say. With how good some of these rookie quarterbacks have played, it almost puts so much pressure on these guys that take a little bit of time to develop.
Yes.
And it seemed like we were writing Bryce Young off, how he's a bust after his first year.
Way too early,
Way too early. But, I mean, he's now it's in short little bursts still.
Yeah.
But there are glimpses of like, hey, here's the guy who is the #1 overall pick, but still struggles at times. But he's going to have one major game this Saturday against Tampa Bay, in Tampa Bay, a road environment, a division on the line.
Yeah. 2,700 yards for the season so far, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions for Bryce Young. I think kind of the change point for him was when he got hurt. A year, I think it was last year when he got hurt. He was able to watch the game, and I remember there was a quarterbacks that were talking about how much they're able to absorb when they're not playing. They're watching their backup go out there and play. They could process the game a little bit differently. Yeah. I feel like ever since then he's, like as you mentioned, it's been a little up and down as far as the production goes, but you're seeing more of those good games, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he had to watch some games for a while, something he didn't do at Mater Dei High School when he was in California just destroying it. Something he didn't do much at Alabama, especially when he was, rolling offensively, but something he had to do in the pros, and I think it helped reset him.
And I think one major addition for him this year is the emergence of Rico Dowdle.
Yeah,
which
100%.
I mean, the Cowboys can't be too upset about letting him go because they had Javonte Williams just had a 1,000-yard rushing season. So I mean, it was a win-win no matter what. I think Javonte came at a little bit of a lower price tag, so I think the Cowboys might have won there. But the emergence of Rico Dowdle for this Panthers offense, Tenero McMillan, who is dealing with an illness this past weekend, should be good to go, should be 100% by the time this one kicks off. But it's going to really come down to this. I wouldn't be shocked if Tampa ends up losing this game.
Yeah.
And, I know they fire the cannons, but they might just, jam, and then just the ship just implodes.
Exactly. Two former SEC quarterbacks in this matchup, Bryce Young, former Alabama quarterback, and former Oklahoma star in Baker Mayfield. We got a chance to hear from Mayfield about this team and just the fact that they're not clicking right now.
The first interception really just got to give J-Mac a ball more towards the sideline. He was open. That wasn't a decision-making thing by any means. Just got to give him a better ball. Physical mistakes are going to happen, but then later on, some of those penalties really hurt us to not get some points, and then obviously the blocked field goal. So that's just a matter of execution of not shooting yourself in the foot in the first half. In the second half, that second interception, 21 did a good job of he's rolling back to the middle of the field. It's cover 3, but he went off my eyes and reacted and stopped and went back for it. So for me, it's don't just assume that he's going to be where he's supposed to be. But football players make plays, and he made a good play right there. And read my eyes. So offensively, it comes back to execution. We obviously gave ourselves a fighting chance right there, but didn't do enough, and those turnovers obviously crushed us. So got to come back, and here's the thing: we're still have a chance next week. We have been blessed with a chance next week, and guys need to handle it the right way. I think Levante spoke to the team right after the game and hit the nail on the head. So got to respond.
Another winner-take-all game from the NFC South to the NFC West. We'll break it down next here on Southeast Sports Plus. Final week of the NFL season is upon us. Coming up on Saturday, a couple of winner-take-all games as the Carolina Panthers play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and in the NFC West, it's Seattle and San Francisco. And then the AFC North, also a really great battle between the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll break down those matchups coming up tomorrow. It was a really interesting and awesome holiday season my way. I hope it was for you as well. What stuck out from this past weekend? I'll tell you mine, actually, for overall, as it relates to sports.
Okay.
It's the Pop-Tarts Bowl. For some reason,
it's America's Bowl.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I find that most of the bowls feel like glorified. Glorified exhibition games.
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts Bowl, it is a glorified exhibition, but they seem to raise the level of entertainment value almost every year. This year, no different.
I mean, when you talk about obviously the human-sized Pop-Tart, and the actual toaster, to the design on the field, I mean, I like the little sprinkles thrown in around there.
Zone, yeah.
And honestly, the Pop-Tarts Bowl gets an A+ this year. It gets an A every year, but just with the play on the field as well this year, coming down to the final play of the game.
Right.
Final play of Haynes King's great career over there at Georgia Tech, but BYU finally getting that nice win that they've been looking for all year. And obviously 2 tough games against Texas Tech to basically eliminate their chances from the CFP. But, I mean, the Pop-Tarts Bowl is just so great. Unfortunately, well, I had a great Christmas. I just kind of wish I didn't waste my time watching some of those quarterback plays.
I know.
I mean, to be fair, before the year, we were talking about those Christmas Day matchups, and we were like, man, this is going to be so good. The Cowboys are presumably going to be fighting for a playoff spot. The Commanders are coming off their best year in 30-plus years at least.
Right.
Chiefs, or before that, Vikings, Lions. That's always a great one. That was a battle all the way until the final game of the season last year for who was going to win the division.
Right.
And then Broncos, Chiefs, that one was also going to be quite interesting because Bo Nix, his emergence last year going up against what was presumed to be Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs trying to rebound after last year's Super Bowl. But obviously that didn't pan out. And unfortunately, we got, even though they were bad games on paper, they were kind of entertaining.
They were entertaining football games. I do have a sweeping declaration.
Okay.
Unless, and not a declaration, just a opinionated thought here. Unless Christmas Day falls on Sunday, I hate NFL Christmas Day games. And when it falls on Sunday, it's great. But the Thursday matchups, the Friday match, we already had 5 games that were already in the books before Sunday kicked off. I just feel like it waters down the Sunday product when you could have a bunch of games on Sunday. Saturday games are great too, but I want the NBA to have Christmas Day. I want the NFL to have the Thanksgiving Day.
And I know LeBron James was like, "Hey, come on, like let us have. You guys already have Thanksgiving, let us have our day." And I agree. I think the NBA, Christmas is the NBA's day. Thanksgiving is the NFL's day.
Absolutely.